You probably don't expect a futurist to tell you this, but no one can predict the future. What's the future of humanity? Well, it's a very popular idea these days to think that the future is a technology problem. I think this has led a lot of people to think that the future of humanity is basically a technological singularity. We become out-evolved by our own technology. But I don't see it that way. I think actually what we're moving into is not a singularity, it's a liminality. And a liminal period, is a threshold of the future where the certainties of the past have been dismantled, but what's going to replace them is still uncertain. It's very contested at the moment, the future. And liminal periods are interesting because it's when you find really big thinkers and doers that appear. It's a period of time when people can make outsized, meaningful change, as individuals and organisations. So the second part of the question there is how are we going to be getting around in 2030? I think that kind of speaks to the whole liminality thing. So how will we get around in 2030? Well, to be honest, I think it's going to be much the same as it is today, that how you get around is going to depend on where you're born, the kind of society you live in, the kind of infrastructure that you have. People who are getting around on foot in sub-Saharan Africa today are probably still going to be getting around on foot in sub-Saharan Africa in 2030. Whereas in a city like Dubai, if you're lucky enough to fly on an amazing Emirates aircraft like I did on the way down here, then you'll probably still be doing that in 2030. But again, if you're using metros and you're using cars, then you'll probably still be doing that. The nature of the fuels, maybe that will change in some of the mobility, but I don't see by 2030 there's going to be a wholesale change in the way people get around. No, technology cannot fix climate change. The only people who can fix climate change are humans, because we need to recalibrate what we value. Because for centuries, we have chosen to measure and be concerned and report certain things and not others, which is how we've ended up with Amazon, the company, being worth trillions of dollars, while the Amazon, the most important ecosystem on the planet, is worth nothing until it's burnt, chopped down, etc. So we need a wholesale recalibration of what we value. And then technology comes into its own, because we're going to need massive collaborative ecosystems and data infrastructure to start measuring these new things that we're beginning to understand that we value. So technology is not going to solve climate change, but it's going to be a really, really important part of recalibrating value. I talk to leaders a lot about how leadership is changing. And it always used to be command and control, hierarchies. And actually we're seeing that shift, and we're seeing it shift very quickly. I always say to leaders that they need to move from command and control to convene and catalyse. They need to be causative leaders, and that goes alongside enterprise, agility, and things like that. So we need more empathy, 360-degree thinking, cultural competence. These kind of things are what's going to be important. And from what I see, leaders are really beginning to embrace this. Yeah, I mentioned this new moral age that we're moving into. Now, we've always talked about globalization when it comes to business. I see what's beginning to happen now is nobelisation, this moral shoring, people being expected in businesses to take a stand on things that they haven't done in the past. And ESG is a bit of a window into the future on this, because what ESG is showing you is that stakeholders around the world are developing different expectations, but the problem is they're not developing them uniformly. I think for multinationals particularly, this is extremely complex, operating in different jurisdictions and different cultures, and it's going to be an increasing flashpoint. You probably don't expect a futurist to tell you this, but no one can predict the future. Okay, but you can be wise to the future. So when I work with businesses, what I try and help them to do is identify the big ticket items that are going to have the biggest impact on the future, so that then they can take no regret actions. And I think if we can sort of put it in a nutshell, what really businesses need to be looking at is sustainable transformation. It's becoming a cultural and a commercial imperative. And there are four main competencies around that. One is ESG, one is data and digital, another is enterprise and supply chain agility, And the final one is purpose-led business, and expect more and more to be heard about purpose-led business, your North Star, because in this new moral age with moral shoring going on, that North Star is going to be absolutely essential.